What is up, everybody? It's your boy Be Nice coming to y'all with another video. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install the indicator that I created so that you guys can use the orb plus ADR strategy on your charts. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that you have the indicator added onto your charts. It is the orb ADR V3. This is the one that I newly created, so it's not visible online, but if you have the link to the indicator, you shall be able to install it here. So this is already preset with my settings, but what you want to do is you want to go in and adjust the settings according to what you like. When trading indices as such, I like to try to keep my orb at 5 minutes. That way I can kind of see what's going to happen in the first 5 minutes. But if you want, you can change it to 15 minutes. You can make it a 15-minute orb. As you can see, the levels will adjust. Or you can even make it a 30-minute orb if you want, if that's something that you want to do. But for the sake of this video, I will make it a 5-minute orb. For the session time is going to be static at the New York Open. I have the times in Eastern time, 9:30 to 1600. The OR ADR length is 20 by default. If you want to change it to something lower, such as 14, you can do so. It will just decrease the amount of range that your upper and lower ADR will have. But for the sake of this, for the sake of default purposes, I will leave it at 20. The ADR multiplier is going to stay at 1. So now, when you look at the shading, this orb fill color is the shading. I think by default is blue. But if you want to change it to something else, you can do so. I like mine to be like a little gray box just because I have a black background. And then you could change the transparency to whatever you want it to be. If you want it to be like this, you can do so. I recommend not having it super dark, but you can adjust it. Mine is set for 85. So I believe at default, these colors are switched. And to me, the way that I use the levels here, these are considered resistance points for me, and these are support points for me. So for me, it doesn't make sense for resistance to be green and support to be like gold or whatever color I use for like short. So what I do is I just kind of flip flop the levels. So I think at default, this is set to be, the upper part is set to be green and the lower part is set to be this gold color. So I just switched the colors out. So the ADR high, I switched it to this gold. ADR low, I switched it to this green, because what I'm expecting to happen is if price comes down to one of these levels, as you can see it does here, I'm expecting this level to hold as support so that we can continue to go up. And so I just changed the zone's color. The zone color at the top is that same gold, is just more opaque. And same thing for the lower level right here is opaque. And then the profit targets on the opener range are set at default levels for myself. 0.5, which is 50% of the orb right here. So you got 50% of the orb right there. Then the second profit target would be 1 to 1 of the orb range, which is right here. And then the last one I have is a 1.2 percent of the orb range. So up to you what you want. If you want to make this a 2 times the orb range, you could definitely do so. It just makes it a little bit unrealistic in my opinion, because you just never know how far on any given day that these levels will move. But for me, I think 1.25 is a good little cushion for take profits. And then I have it to freeze at the New York close. So whenever the market closes, these orb levels will stay here until the next session starts. So just to show you guys what that means is, during the current session, this is the only time that you will see the orb and the ADR levels. Any other previous sessions, the box will disappear. So whenever the market opens the next time, the New York Open session, the next time it opens up, these levels will disappear, and then you'll start to get a fresh repaint of the orb and all of that stuff. So going back into the indicator, You can also change the way that your orb high and your orb low look. For me, I think the dashed line look is better for me. I just think it's aesthetically appealing. But if you want it, you can make it a solid line for the top and the bottom, or you can make it a dotted line, whatever works for you. And then you can also change the size of those lines as well. So for me, I leave it at dashed, and this is kind of how I use it. So how does the orb work? For people who are looking to use this indicator and they want to be able to see how it works, well, if we are on the 5 minute time period, this indicator takes out that work of you having to draw the high and the low of whatever candle that you're working on. Okay, so if you are working on a 5 minute orb, it will paint the high and the low of that first 5 minute candle of the New York Open. With that being said, now you have key areas to play price off of the 5 minute. In this example, we don't really have the best of examples because, as we can see, prices is pretty much ranging in between the orb high and the orb low for this specific day. So we didn't really get a lot of opportunities except for here, and then the rest of the day it was just like pretty much boring. But how do I use this? If I'm looking at this on the 5 minute, I'll let the 5 minute paint, and then I will drop down to a lower time period, and then I am looking for price to break and retest either the orb high or the orb low. As you can see, right here, after we printed the first 5 minute candle, the first 5 minutes of price action, we had a break above that orb level, and we kind of teeter-tottered around the high of the orb high, and then we eventually broke out and went to that first target, that first orb target, got to that level, rejected, and then came back into the orb. We went down below, retested orb high, and if we see that we aren't able to break above that, this is an indication that we can short going into the orb low, which, as you can see, if you would have shorted right here on the reject of the orb high level, we had a nice push down, and that push down would have gave you a nice 282 point move on NQ. So that's how I would utilize this for that. As we can see, we had a break, retest, and then another break. This is also another entry. We failed to get back into the orb. We rejected after we broke, came back, retested, didn't hold that level, and then we flushed. This would have also been a move that would have paid you pretty well if you would have taken this trade. So that is a 126 point move right there. So with a couple of contracts, that that's not too bad. Let me pull out my short position tool. Let's say you got in on this move, and you were only risking the high of that break of the orb right there. This is a 4.3 to 1 risk to reward. So you would have risked 800 to make 1800. So again, this would have been a great move to catch right here on that rejection. And this is just trading the orb, the break and retest of the orb low. And then we had a break and retest of the orb high. Now, the better move was obviously the rejection of the orb high going into the break of the orb low. But there's so many different ways that you could play the orb. Another example of playing the orb right here is we had a break, retest, and then we had a break and retest of the orb low, and you could have played it to the 50% point or to the orb high. The way that you can get the 50% point is that you can mark out the high and the low of your orb with the rectangle tool and move it over. And as you can see, you get a dotted line right there. So you could play the break and retest of the orb low to the orb high. If you were to play this break and retest to the upside, this is a 186 point move. Or I could give you the risk to reward, pull out the long position tool from the orb low to the orb high with stops just below this low right here, this swing low right here, that is a 5.3 to 1 risk reward. You would have risked $750 to make $2,328 on that move, and you would have never got stopped out, because once we broke and held that orb low, price just moved this way right back up into that level. So multiple ways to be able to play the orb. These are just a few. I highly suggest, if you don't know how to trade the orb, this is something that you can go to YouTube University and find plenty of videos on how to play the orb and find a strategy that works best for you. But the purpose of this video is to give you the indicator that will give you your targets for where we could potentially go. So if this day specifically wasn't a day where price was ranging too much, we could have hit multiple targets to the downside or multiple targets to the upside. Just use these as areas where you can take profit and hold your trades or add to your trades if we see that we get a hold. So let's say, for example, this right here, we had a break of this level, we came down and retested, then we can go up to retest this next orb level here, and then you can do the same thing going all the way up to the top. Once you get to this area, you should be expecting some type of rejection potentially. So just make sure that you know you're only in runners at that point. And then same thing to the downside right here. If we were to play this, if this were to come down, retest this level, then we would expect price to go to that next orb level right there. And then down here, we would potentially expect a bounce. So this is the way that I would use the orb, play around with it. If you guys like the indicator, make sure you add it to your charts and go from there. Hopefully this video demonstration helps you, and yeah, have a good day.